Welcome back everyone to another Outer Worlds 2 build showcase, only this time it's going to be a little different. I wanted to do a quick rundown on what perks and weapon upgrades that I feel are the best for each companion, and which companions I think are just the best characters to bring with you, to hopefully make your next very hard run easier. I have been hearing quite a lot about how awful and useless companions are, and I wanted to make this video to somewhat dispel this notion. Companions will be on the weaker end absolutely in the early game before you acquire armor kits and perks for them. But by the end of the game, with the right selections and upgrades, they can turn into absolute powerhouses, capable of clearing enemies all by themselves, or providing you with an immense amount of utility. For the most part, the companions are all pretty well balanced and fill certain niches well, but there is definitely a certain elderly gal that rises head and shoulders above the rest. This guide is of course going to be for very hard difficulty, which definitely changes the viability of certain companions and perks. I will also say that I've experienced the game fully with both leadership builds and without, so I think I have a pretty good feel on what is good and what is not. As always, I will have full leveling guides in the description for each companion. Before I get started on the perks, I did want to talk about their armor kits for a second. If you at all want your companions to be good, then you will need to prioritize getting these. All of the companions will have specific quests associated with them that will reward you with these armor kits, and when they come up you should go do them as soon as possible. Without armor kits, the companions will not thrive and you will end up thinking they suck, like so many people do. The only exception to these armor kit quests is Val. Her first upgrade is from an advanced lockbox, and her second one is near the end of the game in the open world. So let's get started with our first companion we acquired, and my personal favorite personality-wise, Niles. Let's first talk about his ability, perk choices, and weapon upgrades, and at the end of the video I will give my thoughts on each companion and where they stack up. Niles' ability is a taunt that fires 3 shots into the enemy in quick succession, dealing moderate damage. I will also add that when each character gets their arc completed, they will acquire a passive perk depending on the way you push them. Basically every single character in this game is like Anakin Skywalker. They all have some edgy darkness inside of them, and if you push them into darkness, then they will typically get a passive perk that is more on the offensive side. And if you try to help them be good, then they will get a more defensive style perk. For example, Niles will get extra fire rate if pushed to be more evil, and more defensive utility if pushed to be good. I'm going to run through perks very quickly to try and avoid a 30-minute video, so you can get back to playing. Niles is the best hybrid character in the game. Many of his perks are actually quite useful in different ways, so there are multiple ways to use them. And because of that, the leveling guide in the description will have a tank and damage version. The first perk decision is between I Got Him, which allows Niles to taunt more enemies, and I'm Taking Him Down, which gives Niles more improved damage via weak point shots and armor penetration. For this one, you will want to choose I'm Taking Him Down. Truthfully, you really do not want your teammates taking too much aggro, or they simply will just get shot too much and die. I'm Taking Him Down gives Niles much more damage, allowing him to be an actual threat. At level 10, we have Scrap Engineering and Spotter. This one is completely up to you. If you're running a stealth build, then obviously Spotter is the choice to avoid NPC detection, but if your character is an engineer and you are crafting yourself a bunch of things, then you should use Scrap Engineering. At level 15, we have a tough choice. Give Niles more armor from self-repairing armor, or more damage with some survivability with Ghost Array. I personally always recommend giving your teammates as much armor as possible on very hard difficulty, so they're able to remain on the battlefield. So I go with self-repairing armor. This perk boosts Niles' armor by almost a third, which is pretty significant. At level 20, Niles gives us the ability to basically use the last perks he had in the form of mods. This is a completely build dependent choice. If you're a stealth build, the choice is Ghost Array mod, and if you're playing anything else at all, then the choice is self-repairing armor mod. Level 25 is a pretty easy decision. If you are building him tank, you can go with Dumb Aggression to lower enemy attack speed and pull them out of cover, and if you are building him damage, giving him double the amount of shots is the best choice. Level 30 is again super build dependent. If you are playing anything other than a stealth build, you should 100% go with Force Emitter for additional crowd control and damage resist. Smokescreen Emitter should only be used for stealth oriented characters. Onto mod kits, Niles' best choice for his weapon is Rail Revolver Barrel. Shock weapons are always the best choice for companions. I cannot stress this enough. Shock weapons are extraordinarily good in this game for the CC they provide, and it is much more useful for companions to give us added utility rather than some little extra damage. This is especially true for Niles, who can fire 6 ricochet shock shots into an enemy with his ability and almost immediately shock them. The second upgrade is dependent on how you are using him. The DPS version prefers ricochet shots for more damage, while the tank version would prefer the high density shots. For armor, for every companion, the first choice doesn't really matter, it is completely enemy dependent, and the second armor choice is always Reflex Amplifier Caster. This not only gives Niles more armor than the Amplifier Reflection module, but it also increases your evasion when near him, granting even more utility. Now onto Valerie the Heal Bot. Her ability is basically just that, she heals you, and her passive ability gives you an emergency heal when low on health for both you and your companions. At level 5, she will go with Restoration Operation. If you're using Val, then the reasoning for doing so is that she provides healing. It is absolutely the only reason to ever choose her over another companion. Level 10, no matter what, should be salvaging tools. Having a chance to preserve lockpicks might be one of the most useless perks in the game with how easy it is to obtain lockpicks, and having the ability to get extra scrap on demand is pretty nice. You can just slot her into your party before dismantling your junk if you really want to min-max. Level 15 is again a very clear build dependent choice. Strength Supplement module is better for melee characters, and Fortitude Supplement model is better for everything else. Level 20, the choice is Enhanced Emergency Protocols. Needless to say, being immune for 3 seconds is pretty damn good, and much better than the alternative of having her have a faster cooldown rate. Level 25 is really a personal choice. If you have a lot of healing in your team or are going with medical, then Vitality Catalyst is the easy choice. And if you are not, then go with Preservation Catalyst to keep your team topped off. Level 30 is without questioned Prolonged Defenses. This will effectively double or even triple your armor depending on how much you have and make you much tankier. The small amount of health regeneration from Prolonged Restoration has much less value. For her weapons, if we can't get shock, we go with the next best thing, Frost in the form of Super Cooling Coils. This will provide you with utility in the form of slowing your enemies down, and in order to maximize that, her second upgrade will be the AoE Burst Charger upgrade. Giving Val a damage upgrade is like upgrading her from a plastic spoon to a plastic fork. It really won't help you at all. For her tier 2 armor, we go with Enhanced Generator, so that she can be the heal bot that you picked her for. Now to the third companion you are likely to acquire, which is Inez, the Combat Medic. Inez is another hybrid companion, except instead of tank damage like Niles, she is a damage healer. Inez is really cool with her graph system, allowing for multiple different ways to play her based on your choices. I personally recommend going with the Raptidon graph to provide your team with extra healing if you need it. To be honest with you, I think both of these abilities are downright putrid and possibly the 2 worst in the game, but the one that stinks less is definitely the Raptidon Graft, even though she will decide to set it down nowhere near you and it heals incredibly slowly. It's still better than dealing 12 damage with the Crab Cannon. At level 5, we have a shining light in the darkness for Inez that is Surgical Strike. This is very easily the better choice, as she will pretty consistently stun enemies, allowing for easy weak point shots and stopping them from fighting back. This ability also increases Inez's damage output. Level 10 is completely build dependent. If you're a crafter, then biomass conversion can have its uses, but generally most people would be better off just picking drug conversion to ensure you never run out of healing. Level 15, the choice is Medical Graft Research. This allows the heals to stick with you so you don't have to stand in the healing puddle that Inez decided to drop in the middle of the battlefield with no cover. Level 20 is completely build dependent. If you are using a high corrosive build, then it's a no-brainer to pick Potent Biomass and bring her along, but if you are using anything else, go with the Inhaler. The Inhaler is actually pretty interesting as it allows you to passively heal by just killing enemies. Level 25 is hands down, without a doubt, Self-Betterment. I'm actually pretty sure this is probably just broken when used with a medical build. This makes the entire party immune for 3 seconds on Inhaler use. With the right build, you can likely just keep the party fully immune for over half the fight, even without abusing it. 3 seconds when your life is in danger is incredibly valuable. At level 30, the choice is emergency procedures. Once you get to level 30, your team should absolutely not be lacking in the damage department, so the drug diffusion matter much less. Emergency procedures, however, will provide you with a very potent boost to your healing capabilities. For Inez tier 1 weapon, I actually prefer to go with the silenced barrel. The reason for this is that not only does it boost her damage more, but also wildlife can be very resistant to corrosive damage, so I prefer to keep her consistently good with the silenced barrel. Her tier 2 weapon choice is autoloader. This will boost her damage output quite a lot, allowing her to actually be a threat, and is especially good when combined with the silencer. For tier 1 armor, she actually has a clear-cut choice, the Stunning Mist Dispensers. This will increase her survivability quite a lot when under threat from enemies by stunning them. The tier 2 choice is Accuracy Drug Enhancement. Being able to end the fight as quickly as possible is the goal, and this leans her further into the role as a DPS healer hybrid that I think she is best at. Tristan, the tank of the squad, will come in as your 4th character. His build is the most cut and dry of all of them because he just does one thing, and that one thing is soaking damage. Tristan's ability Judgment will have him charge at the enemy, knocking them down, and the enemies around them, and taunting them. Tristan's first perk will be Juggernaut. This will push him into the full tank role and make him take less damage. Tristan is not good as a damage dealer, so we will not be picking perks like Explosive Strikes that push him into that. Level 10 will be Beg for Mercy. This pick doesn't matter a whole lot, but fearing enemies to start fights is a decent form of CC in niche situations. At level 15, this choice does not really matter a whole lot either, but we will go with Xyranium Regeneration to help keep him topped off if he finds himself inside some Xyranium. Level 20, we continue to lean into the full tank playstyle and choose Aggressive Challenge, which will make enemies come out and take more damage. With that being said, if you want Tristan to be a threat at all, then Frenzy Charge is not the worst choice here. Level 25 is without question Steel Wall. With Tristan being a tank, he will need as much survivability as humanly possible. To do this, we are going to double his health with Steel Wall. Level 30 is another easy choice. It's Ground Shaker. This will make Tristan capable of crowd controlling more enemies and fulfill his role of being an absolute nuisance on the battlefield. For his tier 1 weapon, Tristan gets a shock weapon, so that will of course be our choice. And for his tier 2, he gets even more shock, so doubling up on these will let him shock more enemies. He is both attacking and ones near him, allowing him to CC everything. For tier 2 armor, you will want to of course pick Shrapnel Resistor, to not only greatly boost his armor, but also make him completely immune to AoE damage. If you pick all of these and go full tank, with a leadership build, then Tristan becomes incredibly hard to kill. Next, we have my second favorite companion personality-wise, and that is Azza. Azza is one of the best companions in the game and not only has the most damage, but also an incredible amount of utility when built correctly. Azza's ability will teleport her to the target and launch some high damaging bombs that stagger targets. She also gets 2 charges of this ability. At level 5, the perk choice is clear, and that is Relentless. Relentless will boost her damage, which is great, but more importantly, this lets her stagger enemies. Azza has a lot of forms of disruption in her perks that will greatly help us. At level 10, the choice is going to be Strike from Smoke. You can go with volatile bombs here if you want, but it's a little inconsistent because enemies may not be grouped up. So I recommend just going with the raw 25% damage boost that Strike from Shadows provides. This will make her a serious threat to enemies. Azza is one of the only companions capable of actually killing enemies on her own. Level 15 is Assisted Takedown, and this will be the perk of choice no matter if you're stealth build or not, because disabling mines for crafting materials is incredibly niche, and sneak damage is always powerful. Level 20 will be Stunning Explosion. This is a big part of the utility I was mentioning. Her being able to stun targets with Stunning Explosion is very powerful. Level 25 is sort of a build dependent choice. If you're a very explosive heavy build, then of course you can grab Mine Layer. But for every other build, Flurry of Blades will be much better. This is another ability that lets Azza stun targets and also greatly increases her damage output. And finally, at level 30, we are going to go with the N-Ray Charge. And I know I talked about how good Cold and Shock are on companions, but Azza is the exception to the rule, because she is the only companion you have that can do legitimate damage. So we want to further boost her damage output. For weapons, Azza will get a shock weapon, which is always a great choice, and tier 2 will allow us to get pommel sap, which means she'll have even more crowd control available to use. For tier 2 armor, both of the choices are solid, so you cannot go wrong, but I personally like using emergency adrenaline injectors as I feel it increases her survivability a little bit more. Which will finally bring us to the final companion, the aptly named Endpoint, because Marisol is the bringer of end times for our enemies. Marisol's ability will stun the enemy you target and make all damage done to them critical. This is absolutely fantastic for high health targets. Marisol starts at level 5 with one of the best perks in the game, Combatant Analyzer. This gives you so much added crowd control through the form of marking targets, so depending on where you shoot them, they have different effects applied to them. For example, shooting someone in the head will stun them. This is needless to say an absolutely amazing perk. Level 10 is easily Dispersed Glare. Recharge Paralysis is quite good, but Dispersed Glare is outstanding, making it so Marisol's ability spreads to nearby targets, stunning them all and allowing you to crit the whole battlefield. Level 15 really does not matter at all and is completely up to you and your build. Level 20 is also very build dependent. If you are someone using the N-Ray often to hit targets hard, then the N-Ray Scanner Analyzer is obviously the best choice. But on very hard, I pretty much always recommend using the shield, and because of that, I generally recommend going with the Shield Generator Reflector perk. Level 25 comes with another great 2 perks, but the choice is made for us, with how powerful Chain Paralysis is. I really can't stress enough how unbelievably strong Marisol's ability is, and allowing it to spread throughout the battlefield with Chain Paralysis and Dispersed Glare is absolutely insane. Lastly, at level 30, let's just give Marisol a battlefield-wide crowd control ability in the form of Mind Discombobulator, that basically works as a flashbang, confusing all enemies. It's not like Marisol was much better than everyone else already or anything. For her weapon, I value the Blast Barrel for its AoE, and at tier 2, I like to take the Isomorphic Charger. Both tier 2 choices are great, but often you do not really need her ability to be extended because of how fast the enemies will be dying. For armor, I absolutely love Shield Battery. I recommend using Science and in particular the shield in all of my builds, and this really helps increase Marisol's survivability. We did it. Now that we have conquered going through all of the best perks, let's rank these companions based on their viability in very hard difficulty. I do want to stress, you can easily make any companion work, or even use no companions pretty easily on very hard. So being at the bottom does not mean a companion is a complete dumpster fire, but I will say the companions at the top are much stronger. So let's start with the worst companion in the game, Valerie. Val has the worst survivability, mediocre healing, mediocre damage, and is generally just a strictly worse version of Inez. Val has very few redeeming qualities. The only real reason you should ever use her is because she gets her armor kit much earlier than other companions, which will make her stronger for the first 5 or so hours of your playthrough. Inez also is a fairly weak early companion without perks or her graft, so there is a small period of time when using Val makes a lot of sense. Additionally, outside of just pure strength, Val is probably the lamest companion to bring along, for banter and story-related reasons. All of these factors combined lead to Val being the worst companion in the game, easily. Coming in at 5th, we have her healer pal, Inez. Yes, both of the healers in this game are kind of buns, unfortunately. One of the biggest drawbacks of Inez is that she is incredibly dependent on her grafts, perks, and mod kits to make her stronger. And you won't have all of these things until you reach nearly the end of the game. My biggest gripe with Inez is that you are given 2 options to choose her ability, which is absolutely awesome. But then you get her and these grafts, and you realize that these might legitimately be the worst 2 companion abilities in the entire game. The Raptidon graft sounds really nice in theory, and as mentioned earlier is my recommended graft. But it's very inconsistent on how Inez decides to place it down. She'll often not even drop it on you and will place it into wide open battlefields. Even more so, the healing on the ability is absolutely pitiful amount. That doesn't even really make much of a difference anyway. She does have more utility with some stuns and damage than Val, which makes her much better, but she completely pales in comparison to all 4 other companions for a majority of the game. Which brings us to number 4, Tristan. We're at the point where I consider all of these companions to be quite good in their specific niches. But Tristan just needs a little bit more to make him work than the others, which is why he is not higher. Tristan can only serve as a tank. His damage is not great and he is a melee character, so he has trouble reaching people in general. His ability doesn't even really help him a whole lot either. His ability is probably the worst aspect of him, and if he had something like Niles, Azza, or Marisol, he would absolutely be higher on this list. With all this being said, once Tristan gets armor kits and perks, he can become pretty damn tanky. I just don't think his tankiness provides full value unless you're using a leadership build. With a leadership build, Tristan will get the health he needs to survive and fulfill his true value as a tank. Number 3 is his tank pal Niles. Niles is higher than Tristan because I think he functions better outside of a leadership build. He's not fully reliant on being tanky and can provide much more value with his damage and utility. Niles being so flexible makes him a really strong companion in any team comp, and allows you to move his perks around to fit your needs and playstyle. Niles will die an absolute ton early on, but don't let this discourage you. Go grab his armor kit ASAP, get a few perks in him, and let him turn into the beast that he can be. At number 2 is the best damage dealer companion, Azza. Not only is she the queen of damage for the companions, but the utility she provides, as mentioned in the perk section, is pretty much unmatched. She has so many different forms of crowd control alongside her damage that it's impossible not to get use out of her. Even if you are not building into leadership at all, her 2 abilities basically operate as 2 stuns, alongside her pommel sap, zap coils, and emergency adrenaline injector. She is basically a very annoying mosquito that the enemies just can't get rid of. While she isn't a leadership build, she is even better. She can pretty much one-shot everything outside of armored enemies, while also being even harder to kill, and providing loads of utility. If the endpoint did not exist, then Azza would very easily be the best companion in the game. Which brings us to hands down the number 1 companion, Marisol. I kind of think the designers at Obsidian intentionally made Marisol incredibly broken to fit in with her lore, because otherwise there is no other explanation for how outstanding she is. She has amazing crowd control through her ability, her analyzer, and her level 30 perk. She has great survivability with her shield battery armor. She helps refill your gadget energy faster, which is incredibly useful on very hard, when you're very reliant on your shields. And that all doesn't even mention the best part about her, which is that her ability makes you have a guaranteed critical hit on the target. Guaranteed critical hits plus a stun in this game basically mean that whatever that enemy is, it is going to be dead in seconds. It really does not matter how much health it has. If you have a decent build, you're going to absolutely destroy whoever is unfortunate enough to be on the receiving end of this ability, making her absolutely fantastic for the hardest fights in the game, which are the bosses. Marisol functions in all party compositions and is hands down the best companion in the game. If you just want the easiest very hard playthrough, get the achievement and get out, then you absolutely need to bring her along. I do want to reiterate at the end of this that companion strength really does not matter, and that you can beat the game with none of them if you really want. So if you love Inez for her personality and want her to always come along, then don't let any power ranking stop you. More builds will keep coming for Outer Worlds 2 as long as you guys keep watching them, so if you enjoyed this one, be sure to like and subscribe for more. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.